Allah did not deny that beautiful emotion, that sadness. It's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to cry. It is necessary for you. And Allah does not think less of you that you don't have patience. Allah didn't create robots. He created people with emotion. And even prophets had these emotions, and they are validated in the Quran. So how can we deny this of people? We can't. This is something that Allah put as a gift for us.
Even the way Allah gave us the gift of His name is to tell us you are dealing with someone like there's no one else. He's like nobody else. He will help you like nobody else. He loves you like nobody else. He cares for you like nobody else. He remembers you like nobody else. He's always with you like nobody else. Everyone else will leave you. Everything else will leave you. Allah will never leave you. The first, thing that I want to get across to all of you and remind myself of is because we are believers, that does not mean our problems disappear. It's not like because I'm a believer, I'm not going to be sad. Or because I'm a believer, I'm not going to experience anxiety. Or I'm not going to have family problems. Or I'm not going to have financial problems or health problems or whatever else. Belief, our faith in Allah, our relationship with Allah is not there to solve our problems. It's not there to get rid of the people in our life that are causing us trouble. That's not the purpose of our faith. If that was the case, then the prophets, ﷺ, who had the most close connection with Allah, would have had the easiest life. They would deserve because they would make dua, all their problems would disappear. And if you study the prophets, the closest people to Allah, ﷺ, they have the hardest life. They have the toughest life. And the toughest life comes to them, not even from some faraway enemies, it comes to them from their own families. So in other words, it comes to them from people they can't even escape. They're with them every day. They're with them their whole lives. And they can't escape those problems. So the idea that human beings are created and were placed in a situation where they're going to struggle. They're going to have to deal with very difficult circumstances, very difficult situations, and even people. They're going to have to deal with that. Is part of life.
I will never be able to understand your pain. And you will never be able to understand my pain. It'll never happen. The grief that I feel, only I can feel. What we do? We try to compare our grief to somebody else's. Or we try to compare, your situation is similar to that situation, right? Every situation is unique. Every heart is unique. Every ache is unique. And the only one who truly understands the pain that you're going through is Allah. The word indama here is significant because you have to understand first and foremost that the only one who will truly understand what you're going through and sympathize with you like no one else is capable of sympathizing with you, even the best of your friends, is going to be Allah.
Allah created human beings in difficulty. And He created human beings in heavy burden. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We certainly created the human being buried under heavy loads, exhaustive labor. Emotionally you're struggling, physically you're taxed, you're struggling, health-wise you may be struggling, financially you may be struggling, because of people you may be struggling. This life, Allah designed it to be difficult. Sometimes you look at other people and you say, they have it so much easier than I do. But you don't know what other difficulties Allah gave them that are invisible from you. Everyone has difficulties. Everyone has challenges. You would think, for example, that the Pharaoh, Fir'aun, had kingdom, empire, he had the world's largest army at the time, he had everything you could want, all the wealth you could want, all the power you could want, all the status you could want. He has everything. And how come he has everything and the believers have nothing? And yet Allah describes about him that he lived in a state of fear. وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. They used to live in a state of fear. He used to get nightmares at night. He couldn't find peace. Sometimes people have material things, but they don't have peace. Sometimes people have physical health, but they don't have mental health. They don't have emotional health. So all human beings were put in a state of struggle, and that's believers and non-believers. So what does the faith do? It gives you the strength, and it gives you the ability to go through the storm, to navigate the storm. It doesn't mean you don't get wet. It doesn't mean sometimes the boat almost doesn't tip over. But you now have the ability to go through it and survive the storm. You see, that's the purpose of our faith. It's not to get rid of the problem, but to actually strengthen us so we can go through the problem. The story of humanity from Adam alayhi salam to the last human being that's going to walk on this earth, every one of them is going to have to struggle with fear, and they're going to have to struggle with sadness. Now what are these two things? Fear is about what's going to happen in the future. Fear is about, am I going to lose my job? Is what's going to happen to mom? What's going to happen to my family? What are they going to say? What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen with my exam? What's going to happen with my immigration? What's going to happen with this and what's going to happen with that? These fears about what's going to happen in the next few hours or in the next few days or in the year from now or in the future, these fears are small and big, and they're all the time. They're a part of us, constant part of life. It's always there. And what you're afraid of, let's say a student is afraid of failing an exam. Up until the moments of the exam, there's fear, the heart is pounding. and they take the exam, and then unfortunately they get the result that they failed. And when they fail, there's no more fear, there's now sadness. I mean, there's fear of what your dad's gonna do to you, but there's sadness mostly, right? Now there's sadness about what happened already. So fear is about the future, and sadness is about the past, what already took place in the past. And just because it's in the past, you don't get to tell someone, well, it's in the past, get over it. It's done now. You should move on with your life. No, you and I are not in any position to tell anyone that they no longer have the right to feel sad anymore. Our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued to feel the sadness of the absence of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha for years. For years. Feeling sad is not a sign that you don't have enough faith. He has the greatest faith of all, and yet he carries sadness. Yaqub alayhi salam lost his son Yusuf alayhi salam, and he carries a great amount of sadness. So much so that he cries so much, ibiyaddat aynahu. His eyes turned white. His eyes turned white out of sadness. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have faith in Allah. Allah will help you overcome not being drowned by fear and not being drowned by sadness. He can let you navigate those two feelings. Those two feelings are very powerful. They're enough to drive someone mad. They're enough to drive someone to the point where they don't want to live anymore. It can be that powerful. And yet Allah can give you the strength to overcome what you and I don't have the strength to overcome.
This is kind of one of the fundamental cornerstones of putting trust in Allah, knowing that He understands you like nobody else can understand you, knowing that He feels for you like nobody else can feel for you. He sympathizes with you like nobody else can sympathize with you. So your first wave of complaint and your first wave of lament is actually to Allah Himself. Ya Allah, you know what I'm going through. I speak to you. When it's okay to cry. People have a loss, and when they have a loss in the family, they cry. And then their family members, very insensitive, tell them, you shouldn't be crying, you should have patience. Or you should be happy your child is in Jannah. Something like that. Yes, we should be happy our child is in Jannah, but we're also human beings and we cry. And it's okay to be sad. If a prophet can be sad for years and years and years and not let go, and his sons have to tell him, can you get over it already? And he says, I'm only crying to Allah. What's bothering you? This is between me and Him. And Allah is okay with you crying out to Him. He's okay with you complaining to Him. He's okay with you letting Him know your problems. SubhanAllah. It will give you relief like nobody else. Allah will give you and me a strength to our hearts that we'll be able to overcome the most powerful fear and the most powerful sadness, the deepest kind of sadness. He'll make us strong enough, not that those things will go away, but you'll be strong enough to go through it. You won't collapse. Your heart won't fall apart. One of our connections with Allah, that bond with Allah, we pray to Allah, we put our hope in Allah. What Allah gives us from Him is that glue that holds our heart together and keeps it from being shattered. He gives us that strength. Now, the last thing I want to share with you is, at the moment of death, we are alone. When you live a life and you're about to part from this life, you don't take anybody with you. You're alone. Your questioning is alone. But remarkably in this ayah, everything is in the plural. قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمْ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Everything is plural. Don't be afraid, all of you. They said, our master is Allah. Why is the plural being used if one person's at their deathbed? The idea of a plural here is you may have felt that you're the only one going through this. But centuries before you, a mother went through this when she was putting a baby in the water. And centuries before that, a man went through this when his father kicked him out of the house. And centuries before that, there are believers and prophets, good people all across history and all across the world that you've never met, that you've never known, who've gone through exactly the same struggles you're going through in their own way, and they held on to Allah like you held on to Allah. And you're actually connected to them in this ayah. You're not alone. They may have died thousands of years ago, but you have a deep and intimate connection with them, just like you have a connection with Allah Azza wa Jal. With Allah you're connected by your du'as, and with them you're connected because of the same struggle that you're going through. You know, this is why we make the dua, Alhiqna bis salihin, join us among the righteous. Join us among the good people. You're not alone. You're part of a legacy. There are people before you that have already left that are praying for you, actually. وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ. They're congratulating each other of those who haven't yet joined them. أَلَّا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. They're not going to have fear and grief either. May Allah Azza wa Jal help us navigate our fears and navigate our grief and not be overrun by them. May Allah Azza wa Jal keep us from the emotional torture and the emotional manipulation of others. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us a life of freedom from control of His creation and really truly allow us to be pure slaves of His in every sense of the word.
بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن الحكيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم.